Hey guys, this is Will with Playco Games. I'm going to take just a moment and show you how to play Civicus dice game. Really, we're going to start by just going over this little reference card here. So if you've already opened up your game and have set up according to the rule book, this is basically going to pick up where the rule book leaves off and kind of tidy everything up for you. So on the reference card here, look, we're just going to go down the turn sequence here, and this pretty much explains the entire game on just this one card, like all of the basic rules, the scoring here, and just a bunch of the various rules throughout the game. So we'll just use this card to kind of teach you how to play the game. So let's look at turn sequence first. First thing that you do is place, move, or pull one camp. In the beginning, we're just going to be talking about placing a camp. So we'll talk about that. The second thing you do is extract resources or roll the dice. And then the third thing that you do is use those resources that you just rolled. And then finally, you would actually score your turn. So let's take a look at how exactly the placing a camp works. First of all, this is your, as it says in the rulebook, this is your settlement pool or your reserve. And this is your Colossus reserve. So if there's nothing in your settlement pool, then you don't have anything further to place on the board, so keep that in mind. So in order to place a camp, you just take one of your settlement pieces here, one of your 6. You're actually going to place it on either one of these cards, and you would place it basically between 2 domains. So it could be these 2 domains, could be these 2 domains, but basically it just sits to where it's touching the 2 domains. And what that does for you gives you influence on these domains. So just like 1 point of influence on each of these domains is what a camp does for you. And each round, and you play 6 rounds in the 2-player game, each round you have the option of putting down a camp. Now, the next thing that you do on your turn is you actually roll for resources. So let's just say that these characters are set up accordingly. But let's say it's the white player's turn. This player can place a camp here, so let's just say he places a camp right here. Next thing that he can do is extract resources. So what the player does in the second phase of their turn is look at the different terrains that they're controlling and decide what access they have to these resource dice. So here this person has 2 deserts, 1 mountain, and 2 forests. So take the 2 forests, the 2 deserts, and that 1 mountain there, and you take those dice and you roll them all together, just like this. And then you look at what you've rolled and kind of collect your thoughts and decide what you want to do with those resources. Now, on the card, it shows you right here all the different things that you can build, like camps, villages, cities, and even the Colossus piece. It tells you what resources that you need to build those. So using this recipe chart, or whatever you want to call it, you can basically decide what you have to work with and what you want to build. Now there are some other options when you're using those extracted resources, which is the third phase. So you've rolled these. Now you can take a look here, and now your third phase of your turn is to use those resources that you just rolled. And so you would look and you would say, well, I have a stone here and a clay. I can absolutely turn a camp into a village, which would basically be moving this to this position and having more influence on more places, and it makes that a permanent settlement as well. So using the extracted resources is really one of my favorite parts of the game, because there's just so many things that you can do. Like on the player card here, any one resource allows you to increase your culture, which gives you more exotic goods for scoring in the game. Your technology, the more you have here, the more re-rolls. So like, for example, when we rolled earlier, if we didn't like this stone right here and we really wanted an exotic, we could re-roll that, and looky there, we did. We rolled another exotic. So technology really helps you to modify the rolls that you have naturally. Polity is interesting. That's sort of like the politics. What level of organization do you have? You have tribes, chiefdoms, and state level society. That's how well your people are organized. So this tells you, like, for example, if you're here, you're positioned to where you get 1 point for every camp that you have on the board. So this player would get 1 point for each of those. Whereas if he gets up here to chieftain, no longer gets the point for the camps. Instead, it gets 2 points for every village, and so on and so forth. And so that's an interesting one. And then finally, you have reputation, which you can use use in this chart right here to tell you how you can spend resources to increase your reputation, which gives you lots of different benefits you can find in the rule book. Okay, so anyway, on this player's turn, you know, they rolled the resources. Let's say they spent the stone and the clay, and they did a village and upgraded this to this village here, and then spent these 2 exotics. Let's say they did two festivals, which you'll see here raises your reputation. And then they had this extra wood, so they can spend any one resource to increase an attribute. He's going to go ahead and increase the tribe to make his camps have more point value during the scoring phase. Now that we've used all of our resources, we return these back to the dice pool. And that says that you've spent those dice, and that's how you'll do it. So if you rolled these and you want to use those to build something, you say, okay, hey, I'm spending these. You return them to the dice pool, and then you do whatever, like for example, building this village. All right. So once you're finished spending all of those resources that you rolled, then you score your round. And as it says in this in the rule book, you basically have this little quadrant of the score pad that's available for you, and you basically can kind of pair that up with the back of this reference card. Remember, this showed us the different recipes for all the construction costs and whatnot, and then this side shows us scoring and what these other little characters do here: the farmers, the merchants, and the mounds. The mounds basically increase the value of your sacred sites. And they're actually kind of a 3D element where you can stack the bigger mound down, and so you could potentially make one sacred site worth 3 if you were to put both mounds. The farmer does the same. The merchant does the same thing for the markets. It basically doubles the value of any market. So you would just place that in the center of your market, and it tells you, hey, now that market's worth 2, which is really, really powerful because there's multipliers in this game, and that really increases the value of the multipliers. So same thing with the farmers here. The farmers multiply double the value of your farms. And so basically what you do on your turn is you take this scoring at the 4th phase of your turn is you score. You get your subsistence score. Now this is the 6 rounds. This 7 and 8 is for expansions to the game and whatnot. But this first round will score all the way down to this sum, and that's where you put your total for that round. So you score your subsistence. Now your subsistence is really simple. Scoring is farms times villages at 1 point and cities at 3 point. So if you have 1 city and 1 village, that's total of 4 times, let's say you had 2 farms, that would be 8 points you would be able to score, and you would just write an 8 in there. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just pretend that we had 8 there. So again, how that works is on the board here, if you control a farm, let's say you controlled this one farm, let's say you also controlled this one, like we were talking earlier. Let's just say we have one village here, and let's just say later we had built another city here. So we'd have 3, 4 times 1, 2 is 8. So there you score your 8 there. Next thing you do is score your commerce. You take a look. Do you control any markets? And if so, do you have any of these exotic goods as the multiplier? Because that's the interesting thing about exotics. When you roll the exotics on these dice, right, you have to decide at that time, do you want to spend that resource to take a physical exotic good as a multiplier, and you would multiply that by the number of markets. So obviously you would want to control markets, and you would want to control exotics together, because your markets are only as valuable as the number of exotic goods that you have in them, and then your exotic goods are only as good as the number of markets that you actually control. So it's sort of a little economy system, if you will. And so that's a multiplier there. Let's just say hypothetically that you had 2 of these little physical crystals that you decided when you rolled them, you're like, I'm going to keep those for points, so I want to go and keep those. And let's say at one point you had kind of bumped up your culture here, so now we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's say that this city actually was controlling this market right here. So we would have what? What I say, 1, 2, 3, 4 times that 1, that's 4. So let's just say we had 4 points in commerce. And then we look at our theology. Theology scores by 2 different tiles that are domains that are on the board. You have temples and you have sacred sites. So if I control 1 temple and I control 1 sacred site, and let's just say I had built a mound on that sacred site, and let's say I was able to build the 2nd tier of that mound. Now that mound's worth 3, that temple is worth 1, that would be 3 times 1, that would be 3. Let's say that in the hypothetical scenario, that's what we have. Then we look at diversity points. We look at, did I score in all 3 categories? I sure did. And so what that's going to do is it is going to give you a bonus here, and I'm going to just reference the rule book and make sure that I don't tell you incorrectly. But your diversity point, yeah, so you get 5 points for scoring in 2 primary scoring categories, and you earn 15 points for scoring in all 3 of the primary categories. So that's huge. I just scored 15 points just by having scored in all 3 categories. This diversity bonus is basically kind of saying, hey, look, you know, you need to kind of diversify a little bit to make your people happy. People like a bit of religion. They like people to have, they like to have their commerce managed and whatnot. So this is basically just saying, hey, you've done a good job managing your stuff. We're giving you a reward here. Fishery bonuses. You'd count your fisheries that you control. They're worth 1 point unless you've built the Colossus, and then they would be worth 3. Let's say you had 1 fishery and you had built a Colossus. That would be 3 fishery points. Then you look at polity. Okay, we did increase that for camps. I do have 1 camp, so I would get 1 bonus point for that camp. I look at my reputation. My reputation is in a +1. It's in the green there at a +1, so that gives us 1 point there. And then there's another bonus, and this is for different variants and whatnot, but there's a 0 for now. So then I would take and I would add that up. So that's 12, 15, 33, 34, 35, if I did my math correct, right? 8, 10, 11, 12, 30, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, I scored 35 points that round. Can you guys see that? So there you go. And so basically that's what you do every round. You place a camp, you extract resources based on what you control. You roll those dice, you look at what you've got. If you rolled any exotic goods, you have to decide if you want to take the physical exotic good as a victory point multiplier for your commerce score, or if you want to use this exotic as a wild, because that's another option for you. I mean, it's a tough decision. Do you want to use it as a wild resource right now to build, say, a city? Or do you want to sacrifice that, get one of these physical bits, and then it's a multiplier? It's important to say that for throwing a festival, so basically when you roll an exotic, you have 3 choices. You can either use it as a wild resource, you can take one of these little jewels as a multiplier for your commerce score, or you can throw a festival, and at that point you would basically spend that exotic good. And just like you would on building anything else, you just say, okay, I'm going to use this exotic good, throw a festival. That increases your reputation, and you'll read more about that in the rule book if you haven't already. So anyway, so we've scored 1 round, and it's real simple. Like I said, place a camp, place, move, or pull a camp, and the only thing move and pull means is that camps are mobile. That's a really cool thing about them. You can move this one from here to here, but once you've upgraded it to a village, it's no longer movable. It's permanent. It's a permanent settlement. So keep that in mind. So you place, move, or pull 1 camp, and pull means if you had everything out here, and let's say you wanted to build a city, well, you don't have any more pieces in your pool here. So basically what you would have to do is say, hey, I'm going to pull this camp at the beginning of my turn, and then roll my resources, and then if I had the resources to roll the city, well, then I would have the piece to actually build that city if I were going to build a city, And so that's the deal. Place, move, or pull 1 camp. Second thing you do is roll the extracted resources, like I said. Spend those resources, building different things, building your attributes. Here you can build the earthen mounds. Each level is 1 clay. You can build a merchant for any 1 resource plus a metal. 2 wood and a stone get you a farmer, and those are just really great things. Like the farmer, I mean, it really gives you a lot of value. Anyway, so then finally you'll score just like we talked about using this chart again. It's real simple. Markets times 1 for villages, 3 for cities. See if I can get that focused for you. Gives you your subsistence score. Markets times the physical blue exotic good tokens gives you your commerce score. Temples times sacred sites gives you your theology score. And so you do that 6 times. Once you've done that 6 times, you take all 6 of these totals and you add it into this little spot here, and you have your final score. Each player compares their final score, and whoever has the highest score wins the game. I hope that's a little tutorial that helps you guys get started playing this game. If you do have any troubles, please leave comments, contact us anyway. You know our email, we have our phone number available. There's a few different videos that are going to be popping up throughout the next couple of months, guys. So I hope this has helped, and hope you enjoy the game. And if you have, like I said, any further questions, please feel free to ask us. Oh, and I do want to clarify one thing. I believe I did forget to put this in the rule book, and I don't know how. I think it's because in all of the play tests thus far, we have never had anybody actually lose reputation all the way to the skull and crossbones. So when I was developing the rule book, I failed to mention that if you do reach this skull and crossbones, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It says you lose your, you abandon, or excuse me, your people abandon you. I mean, you lose your people. You are no longer a leader. You are now just a random person who has a bad reputation. So essentially you have lost the game. So even if you were just in round 3 of the game, if you've been a really bad person and you've just attacked people here and there, right and left, and you lost all your reputation, you lose the game. And then a 3-player game, or excuse me, a 3 or 4-player game, if you did get the expansion, if this does happen, the player does lose the game, but all of their pieces do remain on the board, and they, cities are permanent still and everything like that. The way to think